Well, it's 5 o'clock. If you would join me, please, in muting your phones. And, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we went straight to the pledge because you guys looked ready. You were starting to stand. But I'm going to formally call this meeting to order. This is the October Culver Redevelopment Commission meeting. Thank you, everyone, for attending. And let's go to roll call, please.
Oh, sorry. Sara Jones here. Marty Oosterbaan.
Here.
Sara Ricciardi.
Here.
Jerry Seiler.
Here.
And I'm here. As our clerk and town manager.
All right, wonderful. Next on the agenda is approval of the September 18th meeting minute. I know I haven't had an opportunity to take a look at them. Have they been circulated?
Yes.
You got them? Okay, I'm sorry.
It's okay. We can hold it for next meeting.
Would that be okay with?
It's fine
Yeah.
with me.
Okay, thank you.
I think we get dinged for waiting.
All right. I'm afraid I got behind on my emails then. Okay, well, let's go to new business. We've got the spending plan on our minds for most of our work tonight, and we're going to start with our friend, Paul's going to take this. You'll recall
Move up to the speaking role if I could, yeah.
Yeah, you'll recall that Paul was here at the end of last year. A couple of you maybe
Right around,
yeah,
finished up in December, yeah.
talk about sponsorship at the Wild Rose Moon, and now he's here to give us an update on how it's going and maybe ask for a re-up or something. I don't know.
We're here to tell you that you spent your money very well and where we're going in the future, to give you an opportunity to do what you need to do, whichever direction it is.
Wonderful. Thank you.
I'm not alone.
All right.
I'm joined by two other board members, Nancy Waldschmidt and Judy Smith.
Hi, Judy. Hi, Nancy. Welcome.
So you can't beat me up because they will back me up.
No one gets hurt in the
Council meeting.
I've been other places with more work. I do have paper copies if anybody would like some. I know that you sent them out. I have
Yes.
4 and I don't want to carry them back.
Well, we're going to project it as well, but
Good.
just like
Makes me feel better.
Like your walk home.
So first, I want to thank you for your support of the Moon and take this opportunity to tell you, share with you where we use that money, what that we perceived it did for the town of Culver, and some things that have been happening with the Moon and what we're going into 2026. First, if we could go to the page of what was agreed to.
Maybe Karen says, all right. All wisely.
And while she's doing that, I'll mention it. You know, we, at the end of 2024, the town of Culver agreed to sponsor 5 programs for the Moon, and specifically programs that would run off, we broadcast off cycle. So not over the summer when people would normally come to Culver, but run during times where people may not be thinking about it or say, oh, Culver. So what that was, we had live performances in April and May. Your first support was started in April and May, and it's finishing in September and October. Actually, this coming Saturday is the last of the 5 sponsored. Great way to finish because our very first guest host comes from Culver. Zachary Gibson, who's over in the theater group at the Academy. He has run summer programs and has done plays at the Moon. Great way to finish out with Culver as one of the sponsors and the very first guest host coming from Culver. So if you haven't got your tickets, you want to go support, please do. There are a few left. We'd love to have you there. When I said you supported 5 shows, it really turned into 15 because 5 live performances, most of them were full houses, 60 to 70 people. That was in Plymouth. We do post-production and we do 5 television shows. So that goes out across WNIT, across Michiana. And then 5 radio shows across Michiana with WVPE. So that sponsorship actually covered 15 different events, 3 different audience groups, radio listeners, television, and I call that media because we see a lot follow through on what they post, and then live performances. It's actually been very good, and I'll go into some of the numbers, but I thought maybe it would be helpful if I actually showed you what it looked like. And if I can be smart enough, and I apologize for this, but it's the only way I make sure you're all looking at me. And yeah.
Radio Hour. The following program is brought to you with generous support from the town of Culver, Indiana. Culver, dine, shop, stay, repeat.
And there was a second
Special
sponsor.
thanks
again,
to Wahoo Solar for sponsoring this performance. Wahoo, energizing the future.
And part of our gig is to talk about, we are local, small town, almost prairie home companion. Then we roll into the theme song and rolls on to this. So I have to say, it photographed and filmed very nicely. And that's what gets put out in audio. It gets put out. We modified it a little bit. We took poetic license and we called it the beautiful town of Culver, which fit better because there were some other sponsors with their towns and just said, now welcome to the beautiful town of Culver, dine and so on. But that's what it looks like. Let's go to the next page. So here's where we are. As I said, 4 of the 5 shows have been performed. The 5th one is happening now. Again, Zachary Gibson. It's a nice beginning. We will be doing more guest hosting, and I suspect Zachary will be someone who will come back to. But again, there's another Culver tie-in with this. We have had a really good year in marketing our story, and that has a direct effect on our sponsors. So what we've done is we've taken a look at and seen how our broadcast partners value us, and we have a more systematic approach to exposure and repeating the message. So we see an increase in what's going on out there. This is our first summer that WNIT, PBS Michiana, showed us last summer and showed us this summer. We are up in viewership by 96%, almost doubled. Summer's a terrible time of the year, but the numbers run true. Right now, this summer, we're seeing in about 1,000 households. And your television ads, sponsorships are going to run more in the fall. So you're going to be running on a bigger base than we had projected initially when you had signed up with this. We have seen significant numbers in Facebook and our online as well go up. So there's an increase in that. We did our first show in South Bend, took our first show on the road. It was a blues show that occurred in March. It wasn't one of your sponsored shows, but it was one that we were able to sell out the Layton Auditorium, 250 seats. It is a validation that we're more of a Michiana asset, a Michiana resource, and a Michiana draw. And we've gotten feedback to tell us that in fact we are, and that just confirms our footprint. WVPE, the radio station, has been with us for 10 years, and they've been a strong supporter of ours. They have moved us from during the week till Saturday at 11 in the morning, which is their premium spot. So they did reprogramming, and they said they looked at what we've been doing with them, and they put us in the premium spot on the radio lineup. They count as probably 60 to 70% of the 10,000 people that watch or hear an episode of our shows. So that number will go up, and that's just been a big vote of confidence for us. And again, we see it as a link to any sponsor that is sponsoring us. It's a big confidence vote for them as well. We'll go to the next page. So part of that, Amanda Miller Kelly is their president of WNIT. And she put it pretty strongly that the quality of the program, because we're on Saturday night and their premium spots as well. I think Mystery Theater before and Austin City Limits after. But she has put it that they are glad to broadcast us and put us, as she said, shoulder to shoulder with any national programming. And I put that on George and the post-production team that he's developed, that it just works out really well. That whatever gets shown, just as that little beginning piece you saw, there's a quality to it all the way through. And sometimes it's kind of funny when you say, well, where are you? We're just in this little place off a street up in Plymouth, but actually it is much bigger. And that's our model to make ourselves look much bigger because of that. So again, regionally, about 10,000 people will see or hear, currently will see or hear one of our Wild Rose Moon episodes. And that number should go up. We also, I'll talk briefly about, we did a study on what is our perception and how we're perceived in Michiana. But right now we're at a 96% approval across all forms of media, that they say, oh, that place has really good reputation. So again, that's one of the things when you're sponsoring, you want to see the draw that you're not sponsoring something that's controversial or doesn't get a good draw. The majority of our audience on television and radio clearly comes outside of Marshall County. And you'll see when you look at the two zones of broadcast, whether it's television or radio, the two things that come to mind is they're all outside of our county, so they get to see your message. But more importantly, they can all drive to act on that message. And that's a key thing. We also took a look at our normal ticket sales, and in 2024, we found that 51% of the people who actually came to the moon came from outside of Marshall County, based on a credit card and all that information that you can track. So, it's a local gem, but it does have a much bigger reach. And we have, I guess, not this performance, but the next performance, there's a group coming down from Elkhart. They rented a bus to come in to see all this, to see the show. So we're bringing other people down in it. Yeah. Go to the next.
Paul, is it fair to say that the demographic, they're not only from outside Marshall County, but it's a demographic that would fit Culver, the people that travel like that.
Yeah,
They have disposable income.
So absolutely. Well, first off, the PBS demographic skews a little older, so they would travel within that driving radius. Skews also with disposable income. And skews education level, all those things. That's your PBS profile. It does that. I can give you an anecdote that our first beginning of the season, our first show, there was a couple that came in. They live in Marshall County, and they were going, like a lot of people, they also have a place down in Florida. They were down there for a couple of months, and that's where they first saw the moon. They happen to be on a WNIT member, and our shows are also stored there as part of their membership. And they said they were watching it, and all of a sudden from Plymouth, Indiana, they go, wait a minute, we lived there. And they didn't know this. And then they came to it. So part of the marketing is repetition, same message, and exposure. And it gets out there. But I would say the short answer is we think it does. We can also tell you that BPE is actively on the radio side, shifting their demographic, trying to bring it more in the under 35. And they have a better mix of it. And that's why they moved us to where they moved us, because it appeals across the demographics. We did a public perception report. It went out, it hit all the media sites, all the websites, and all the tracking to say who we are. And the summaries are up there. It just says that we really are a home. Now, because of the Reese and Heartland, they see it as Plymouth-centric right now. But as most people say, when I've talked to them about Culver, said, oh yeah, great restaurants. I need to get down there sometime. And there's a way to tie in that there's 12.5 miles between Culver and Plymouth. And if you're coming for one, you should stay. Marshall County Tourism is saying, how do we get them to make a weekend out of something? And we actually have feedback cards now asking them, did you come in? Did you stay overnight? Are you local? Because we want to understand, because same thing, we'd love for people to come see a show and it's part of their weekend. But again, this just speaks to, we want to understand who we are so we can tell the story in a better way and consistently tell it. And that's where all these things that we're doing, that's where your sponsorship money went, along with post-production, along with doing all this. You know, we are a not-for-profit, so we reinvest everything. That's what drives us. Everything gets rolled back into this business. And the business is bringing live performances, maintaining live performances, and bringing them in and showcasing extraordinary talent, both nationally and regionally, that we can have here. It's encouraging, because when we first started this, we just weren't sure it was going to, how the perception was out there, but this really helped us understand it. And just as part of the update, I'm glad to answer any questions. In looking ahead into 2026, we have a marketing plan. We have our own constituent database management. So we have those things that will help us continue to push our message out there. We have found the sponsorship program has worked well, and quite a few organizations have come to talk to us about that. And the city of Plymouth actually put us into their budget for the next 2 years. They sat down and looked at it as outreach. They sat down and looked at it as marketing. We originally went to talk to them, and they were going to do a full support everything, which is a $25,000 bill. But SB1 has them very worried. They have to figure out how are the revenue streams going to flow?
Yeah.
So what they committed to us right now was, we'll do 5 shows. Come back and talk to us in 2026, in early 2026, when things start to play out. They want to do all, but they said, we'll commit to half of that now and half of that in 27. They see it as outreach. They, again, exposure, repetition over time, and a good story that gets added to it. We see and expect our numbers to continue to grow. We feel we have a good model to support sponsors, and we look at that as one of our key ways of growing and continuing to grow the moon. We have some feedback mechanisms right now. We just put a new analytics in place on our website, because you are on our website as a pass-through. So you probably can go to your visit on Culver and see how many came through. Yeah, I am not a social media guy that knows it well enough, but I can tell you that on Twitter, the last 30 days, we're up another 14,000 hits, connections. I don't know what that translates to, but this all continues along. So I can speak more to pass-throughs on websites. I can speak more to visibility from that. And as it was with the agreement that, as soon as you want to sponsor anything, you stay on the website for the year. So you always show up, through year 2025. The town of Culver, along with all the others that have sponsored us, have are on our landing page, and every one of those logos are pass-through links to your landing pages. And we did yours, I think, right to the tourism side. We didn't do it to the town, because we just, figured that was where they were going to want to go and look. We are doing, for our planning, if you were to do something similar, 5 shows again next year, that'll be 11,000. Our production costs went up pretty significantly this year, but that's okay, because that's what keeps us broadcasted. We have 2 other levels, and one is all of our local shows, which turns out to be 9. That one is 18,000. We have 2 shows we're doing in 2026 up in South Bend. they're big shows. They 250 seat auditoriums for both. One is the Civic in March. We're doing this along with the St. Patrick's theme because we have Kennedy's Kitchen, which is regionally one of the best Irish bands that plays out there, and we're playing at the Civic. It's a 2-hour show, and it's not a stretch for us because we did the one before. It's one that we're sponsoring it separately because it has a bigger promotion. We've worked with ABC, the ABC affiliates, NBC affiliates. They've come in and done free work with us, and we'll highlight what we do along with what WNIT does. So we see that as just a way for us to do our mission and at the same time highlight those that are sponsoring us. It just gets out there. And we have a fall show back at the Layton Auditorium as well. Another 250 person auditorium, 250 seats. And we have a group out of Kansas City called the Match Sellers, which is extraordinary. So pretty wide genre, pretty good, consistent message as we go forward. And we found that finding those levels, some that want to support at the very top level at 25,000. We don't know what our summer shows are going to be. They won't be Wild Rose Moon because music is pretty expensive in the summer. We've done comedy, but whoever sponsors at that level sponsors everything that we do. They have sponsorship rights to that. So it'll show up in there. But that's just kind of the update. Thought we wanted to let you know what you spent and where it's going, what we're doing with it. And if it fits in your future, we're glad to talk to you about doing that again. We're doing something different.
What's your timing on needing to know from us for 2026 in order to stay on your website?
This is Indiana, so as soon as people say we're going to do something, that kind of counts. It's not a formal contract,
Right.
but this isn't New York. So,
Okay.
if you're heading down that path, that's fine. January 2nd, we're not going to go, you're dead to me and draw a line through it.
Right,
Okay.
Great. Any questions for me?
No, I have some observations. So one, thank you for the analytics. I love all that data and understanding what, comes of it. Two, I love that your board is so active in this because you're letting the artists be artists.
Mm-hmm.
And that George doesn't have to be here tonight. It's a great thing in my opinion, because we know what George does best.
George has a great set of skills,
Yeah.
and I would say we complement those skills with other skills.
Right?
Yeah.
And then three, this aligns, what you're doing aligns so well with the regional plan that Stellar did, because all those production dollars that George received through Stellar, he's activated them in a really cool way,
Mhm.
in a powerful, impactful way, which is really the intent. And I think it aligns well too with our comp plan and the way we did as even when we're not the center of arts and culture, we support that through tourism, through our activities here. So the fact that Culver can be seen in other communities in this kind of way associated with the arts, I think is a good thing. So those are just some observations.
So we are also looking at how do we experimented over the summer with one of the restaurants just down the street, Brass Rail, in that they had performances where people came in and they gave them a coupon, say, go out and use this. It worked. We're also looking at experimenting. How do we make sure that this is an arts and entertainment? Entertainment is the word because the people have to enjoy and come to see that. This is an arts and entertainment destination, this area.
Yeah.
And how do you make that? Because this is entertainment down
Right.
here with the lake. How do you make that and link it?
Right.
And we're experimenting with, if you're in town, great places to eat. And that way we put a link that passes through to somebody else's, so, we see it as all interconnected. I mean, one of my backup slides has a crazy graph, which talks about the creative and artistic and creative economy. It's legit. It does bring all this in. It does feed all those other things. But really, I would say all three of us that are here and the other board members too are more tangible going, okay, what does it look like when it happens? Because this has been an interesting year. We've done pretty well, but the bulldog has been chasing us. So we know what it, so it's, we want to make sure whatever we do, it has a tangible effect for us to continue to do the things we do.
Well, I could, and I would love to talk to you all night about it.
I know.
Unfortunately, time is a little limited tonight, particularly. We have a BZA meeting that starts at 6:30. And
Understand.
we gotta be done. We gotta be out of here by then.
I fully support us being another sponsor. At what level, we can all talk about that in the next month, but
Yep.
I think
I'm
it's
glad to follow up with
great.
you to give you more detail. I mean, I verbally expressed the levels.
Right.
I can certainly have that written up and send that to you so you can have it more.
Already in our minutes.
Yeah.
Okay.
We got you down. And just for my 2 cents, I really appreciate your coming to talk to us about this. And
Well, I thought updates are pretty rare. It seems that
Yeah.
it doesn't occur as often as it should. So we thought we'd do that for you.
and to bring Nancy and Judy with you, and it's great to see you guys. The professionalism and quality of your board really stands out, and it's the quality of the sound and engineering production that you guys are all committed to. The product that makes it real easy for us to want to hang our ornament on your tree, and be associated with it, be affiliated with it. So I agree with Ginny, and I think the other thinking that I'm sensing up here that, we made a good call, and this is something we can partner. We should continue to partner and continue to grow with you, frankly, in this area. So support that part of our.
We love that opportunity. I will do a write-up and get it to you in a couple days, just explaining more about what I just spelled out and give you something to chew on. And if you need any of us to come back when you're doing planning, we'll be glad to do that.
Sounds great.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you very much.
I am going to eventually go back and sit in the back because I'm interested in some of the other stuff you're doing too.
Yeah.
But this is my wild moon hat comes on.
Well, I don't know what that says about you. If you're interested in this stuff. We're welcome to have you. Yes,
I'm
Judy.
Judy Smith.
Yes.
So I don't know if any of you have been to the moon to see a production, but you really should go. It's a lot of fun. You laugh a lot. We need that now, laughing a lot. The other thing is that we have memberships. So if you personally wanted to support the moon, we have 3 levels, $100, $300, and $500. And then you get all the information all the time. So then you know when the shows are. So then you make plans, come see us. So I would encourage you to do that too.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So long now. Well, that was about as much fun as we're gonna have tonight. I think. Now, let's get to the next. We have. Why do I have public and member input?
That's what I was wondering.
It's an odd place for that. It is.
You have it down below too.
Yeah. Do you mind if we kind of skip over that for the moment? I promise any input, you guys know, even though it's just raise your hand and talk. Do you have anything for us, Sally? The Façade grants, okay, so we can move past that and zip right over to Kevin for the town manager update.
Hi, guys. Per your request, we RFP and we've received 3 RFPs. 3 that showed strong interest the whole time and stayed in communication. So I'm going to open them tonight. They remain sealed up to this point just for good form and do it in the order that we received them. But
This is the Main Street renovation project, just in case that wasn't
Yeah.
clear. Right.
And we're moving to that. The RFP was for a Main Street renovation as well as a market gap analysis. One of the things that was highlighted within our comprehensive plan was to go out and solicit and find necessarily a company, but I think we moved that way. And this is in turn with some conversations about the economic development. And we have solicited 3 companies. I'll open the bids tonight. I'd ask that we take them under advisement. And I ask for your guidance on this. I'd like the redevelopment to consider these bids. I'll distribute them electronically. I'll scan them in tomorrow, send them to you. I'd also like to send a copy to the town council and as well as share them with our Main Street organization for their recommendations, advice, and feedback. I'm at the pleasure of the redevelopment, but I think in November, maybe we could have a decision. I hope maybe during the meeting, if not sooner, and we can move forward. So tonight I'll just read, I'll give you the amounts, and in terms of the detail of the proposal, I think I'll scan those and make those publicly known as well. Okay. All right, we'll begin with the first, and that is from Civitas Strategies. They came in the first to present to us, and they were the first to submit. And of course, I didn't bring my letter opener running off the football field, but we'll get this. I'm fine. Thank you.
Just from Jared Moore.
And looks like we have a full proposal here. Never sure if they're gonna, where they include it, but we've got project team resumes with it, relevant experience, obviously your kind of standard proposal. Planning partnership, they have a timeline. We left the budget up to them. Work plans included, again, scan this in. Deliverable market gap analysis for 20,000. Downtown revitalization, 75,000, a total of 95,000 from Civitas. And again, I'll leave the details for consideration and you can compare them as I distribute them to you. Okay,
Thank you.
any repeats? Are we good? All right, I'll move on to structure point. Thank you, Karen.
Can I ask one question?
Of course you can.
So Civitas is a name that I'm not familiar with.
Okay.
Did Veritas change their name?
It did, and I'm sorry. Formerly, I should have done that. Okay. The art is formerly known as. This is, yeah, it is Verit. It is Verit. They told me that a couple of weeks ago, Marty. I appreciate you pointing that out.
Thank you.
But that's our friend B. Olson that came up and talked with us. Okay. Moving on to structure point. Second to be received. Organization, someone here. Yeah. Making sure. Just making sure they provided 3 copies. Again, a vision, insight to action. Looks like your community engagement components that we asked for. Again, I'll share the RFP with you so you know what was asked for within it. Some phasing, some comps that are with it. Meet the team is always good, so they're giving us all their credentials. Going to get to the investing in impact budget fee proposal. I assume that's it. Phase 1 is educating, phase 2 is drafting, and phase 3 they have is empowering. The total fee with optional task is $58,310, making sure that I'm not missing something additional here. The drafting component, the first part is $29,470. That's for the educate component. The drafting component that would include the market analysis, peer community benchmarking, and zoning would be $9,440. And the empowering part, draft revitalization, implementation roadmaps, marking prospectus, 19,400. So again, the total was 58,310. And that is from structure point. Any questions? We're good.
Thank you.
You're welcome. The last is from Retail Strategies. It was Sara Jones that we spoke to. Marty and I had a meeting with, and they showed interest and they did submit. So open. I see confidential documents less secure, but okay. Okay, there we go. Market analysis and downtown revitalization. Again, prepared by Sara Jones with the VP of Community Partnerships, Retail Strategies. Executive summary, background, qualifications, team bios, included proposed approach methodology, customer and community analysis, market gap analysis, strategic recommendations, work plan and timeline, breaking it out into months, it looks like. That will be for your review. Budget and fee proposal. A requested scope of work and implementation kickstart would be 55,000. Implementation, support 25,000 in year 2, and again 25,000 in year 3, making a total of 105,000 if I'm doing my math correctly. I'm making sure I'm not missing anything in appendix. We have comparables. Quite a few, both local and internet, or not, excuse me, national. Business recruitment. Note that looks like I've got the price point. Business recruitment, additional services that could aid. So there is an option to this as well, not necessary, but it is an option. Business recruitment would be a $45,000, and you can read for yourself when I give you the proposal. But it's a downtown strategies team would conduct outreach to retailers, brokers, developers, tenant reps, small business and entrepreneur support. 12,500. That's a learning path, and again, they give an adequate description of what they mean there, so I won't labor over it. You can read for yourselves when we distribute. So we do have options. Their base fees were given at the beginning, and those would be at 105,000.
Right, for 3 years.
Yes, sir, for 3 years.
Okay.
I will spend some time tomorrow doing some
Yeah.
photocopying for you guys,
Scanning,
scanning
right,
it in for a
yeah.
PDF,
Yeah.
and I'll distribute again to the town council, to you, and to the Main Street, and try to get one with your permission. Put these also for public record if that's permissible to the redevelopment.
Yes. Very good. Transparency is important.
I agree. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, somebody might have input on the
I
your
absolutely
methodology.
agree.
I wouldn't be opposed to if you shared with some of the small business owners that you were in touch with, Marty. They wanted to come take an analytical eye on it.
Yeah, yeah, I'm thinking let's do that, and perhaps a work session that
Yeah,
would include that.
and you can invite all those different parties and see.
I was hoping that may be something that putting it in the hands of Main Street and having them rally the business owners around them, because they've been kind of
Right.
an opportunity there.
Love for them to be the voice.
100%.
Right?
Yep. Yes, sir.
Save us a lot of in the public engagement, or part of that, at least.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Long time coming. I felt like we were
Well,
waiting a while.
It was, well, it's not like you don't have anything else to do, right? And you put together the RFP,
I was
you
so
got it
happy
out
when
there.
they started coming in. You were
You got
waiting, you asked, and they delivered.
I think given that amount of time was smart, because a lot, I'm sure they had questions.
They did.
Because that RFP was pretty complex, and if I'm at a firm, as someone who works for a firm, I would have questions that are.
They felt the
not
RFP was
necessarily
good, but they,
Because it wasn't thorough, there's a lot to unpack there.
it was, and one of the questions, just to share with you, the commission was, what's your budget? And I said, why don't you tell us? And one of the things we're asking you is, what's our budget? Yeah, so
Yeah, what's this gonna cost? Yeah.
we're gonna see. So thank you.
Well,
Well,
there's
nice job, Kevin.
there's
Really,
been a big
seriously.
shift in the industry with, this just has come about at some of the conferences lately. A lot of the shift is toward QBS, submittals, which is quality-based selection versus price-based. Because sometimes with the QBS system, you get a different approach from some firms, or you get a more in-depth response versus boilerplate templated submittals, if you will. And so there's a lot of movement toward that, and a lot of municipalities are finding they prefer that. And then you go negotiate the price once you've picked, so, or the other shift is a combination, like in this case, where you get the approach, the methodology, the qualifications, and a price.
And as
And
well
you
as
get
that
to pick what you like.
that time frame also, and I think
Yeah,
taking the price with that, you can determine value. And you're looking for best value, not lowest price.
yeah, I think it's a good thing for the industry in general,
I
but
agree.
it's something I'm noticing a lot at these conferences. They're starting to talk about QBS a lot.
QBS,
Like-
that's what it's called.
It's like the new acronym, quality-based selection.
You're always hip with the new grad.
Helpful, isn't it?
I'm anxious to learn about it. Thank you. Yep, sounds great. Okay. So you would be okay, well, give a little bit of time to digest this week or two, and then maybe call a work session.
I think so. If that's
Right.
Something.
Yeah, I
The
can
directive.
share it with Main Street, and if they're not gonna rally the business owners, we ought to just, this impacts them the most. So they really should weigh in on what they like about these three different approaches. And I'm glad they have some options to look at, right?
We do.
None of them were terribly expensive from my viewpoint, just knowing the industry. Those are reasonable prices for the
Yeah.
objective. And granted, we haven't looked at the details, but you know,
Sure.
you get my gist.
I do. All right, great. You've got more.
I've got more. How detailed do you want me to be with the hotel division?
It's a standing agenda item, I
It
think,
is.
until we.
We've had a
it goes
conversation.
one way or the other.
Yeah, we were approached, again, Greg Hillebrand brought to us a hotel company, Cobblestone, that is interested in coming to Culver. We've explored it, we've had discussions, and those discussions apparently are moving, and moving in the right direction, I think, in terms of developing. Cobblestone is interested in doing what they call their Main Street model here. It's a higher end hotel, about 45 to 60 units. Not classified as a boutique hotel, but not your typical, for lack of anything, highway hotel. It's very sensitive to Main Street. They specialize in markets under 10,000 across the Midwest. Very big in Wisconsin, Minnesota. They're sensitive to Midwestern cosmetics. We've had discussions, and Chris Hart reached out and wanted to move those conversations forward. They're interested. The performer was done to see if the hotel was necessary. Again, I think honoring what the comprehensive plan has been asking us to do. And moving forward with this, the conversations turn to what are some incentives, as well as what are some possible locations. We brought Andy Settlemeyer in from the Academy. Academy is obviously a heavy driver in this in terms of need. However, in terms of location, there were some sensitivities in time framing that made it difficult possibly to look towards ground that the Academy owns, some availability, as well as understanding that and being sensitive to where the location should be. Where will it fit in the best in terms of the landscape of Culver? We don't want this thing to appear and disturb what we have as a kind of an environment town-wise. So in that mind, we've had conversations about location. One of the possible locations, if I may, that Chris was very interested in was 515 West Jefferson. And many of us understand it as the old trailer park. That location was about 2.5 acres. It has quite a bit of ground. They need an acre for a footprint. This gives them additional. One of the needs, obviously, of the Academy would be the house sporting teams coming in. This would allow busing to be able to provide there. Again, one of the points Chris said is that people are going to come to Culver. They're not accidentally just coming off the highway. Listening to Paul today, obviously, when you think about entertainment and being a cultural center, having that overnight venue, having people to come here for a weekend is something that drives it. They're coming to Culver. The location they'll go to. This gives them highway access as well. One of the things we've talked about is the development of Jefferson Corridor as well as Main Street. Chris liked that location because it's very walkable all the way from Lakeshore down. People who are there from the Academy are going to drive to the Academy. So with that in mind, I made contact with the property owner. The property owner showed interest in having that conversation with Chris. I put those two into contact and I walked away like a right proper matchmaker. And I have not heard back. I'll check in with Chris tomorrow to see how that conversation, if there's anything more I can facilitate. Obviously, this is an ongoing conversation. Nothing is finalized. We talked about the investment requirements. Very reasonable, we think. One of the things Chris mentioned was getting that, as he put it, cowbell donor, somebody who's going to lead that pack, lead that charge, and bring the rest in. Andy Settlemeyer, it seemed very supportive of both the hotel as well as discussion with maybe potential investors, not donors, investors from the Academy side. So we'll have those conversations, see how they move forward. Again, it's not a town project, but the town wants to facilitate where it can. Talking with Bob Porter and the utilities, it is a feasible project at that location. Obviously, we want to ensure that. And there's some things still left to discuss about it, but again, encourage. And I think it does address a lot of things we have been talking about. And I went back to the comprehensive plan. My intention was to bring it in tonight and show check boxes. As I pulled out that action plan that was provided to us and that comprehensive plan, there is about 7 or 8 that alone for the redevelopment that we've centered on and we're moving on. And I think that's encouraging. And I want to kind of give a red light, green light, yellow light in the next month on the comprehensive action plan. Where are we moving? Where are we starting to have the conversation on a lukewarm yellow level, and where that red light, maybe because it's a long-term plan, or maybe it's just because we need to spend some time focusing on it, right? So trying to update that and bring it forth to both the town council and the plan and redevelopment. So that's where I'm at. I don't want to take any more time, but thank you.
Questions for Kevin? I'm going to clarify that it is Chris Hart, who is the representative of the hotel company, is the one who would be having the conversations with the potential investor.
Thank you.
The town is not engaging investors in the project. The incentives that he raised in the meeting that would be of 3 potential varieties. One would be a property tax abatement, which would not be part of our bailiwick, right? That would be a town council matter if they wanted to consider it. There would be potential for TIF financing assistance with the project, depending upon the land, right, that they select. And then there could be a rebate of, I'm going to call it a rebate, I'm sure that's not the right word, regarding the innkeeper's tax. And you could work the innkeeper's tax along the lines of a property tax abatement, that a certain percentage of the innkeeper's taxes given back to the investors over a period of time. Usually property tax abatements are 7-10 years. Kevin Berger, correct me where I go wrong in describing this, but then sometimes are, 7-10 years at 100% of it. And sometimes it's 7-10 years where you go a scale where you take away 1/7 every year. And then at the end of 7 years, you got the full revenue going back to the bucket that it's designed to go in.
Innkeeper tax, is that still local decision or county?
It's a county. I'm going out to Marshall County Tourism. I'm on their agenda with an ask. That we invited and got on the roll call. Might start fostering, and then at a very small level, that conversation about incentives, but I don't want to overspeak. And again, I won't speak until the redevelopment tells me that that's something they want me to pursue. But I'd like to put that out there, that this is an opportunity, and this is something that supporting is in their best interest.
Right.
I mean, I'm assuming innkeepers collected by the county.
It is.
So it would be the county council and the county commissioners who would have to make that decision.
The board may be able, the commission may be able to make that decision. I've never heard of this before. I don't know if anybody else has.
I wouldn't know how it works.
But I'm told that Indiana does allow that, and it does happen under our
We
statute.
might want to ask Tankersley, because that's kind of an interesting proposition, given most of the innkeeper tax doesn't even come back to Culver anyway.
Right. Right.
So just thinking out loud.
So there's a, and there's kind of a question as to, the incentives are designed to improve the return to the investors, right? And so do we need to do that in order to get the investors, in the project? I don't know, we got to kind of see how it plays out, but I don't think it's too early to start thinking about it and considering, from like a scale standpoint, how much innkeeper's tax is there, right? How much property tax is there? How much TIF financing might be available?
I would
for something
definitely,
like this. And so I'm going to try to put some numbers together around that, just to kind of scope it, and then
I'd
maybe
like
you
to
could,
see the assessed value
yeah,
for a boutique hotel and a community equivalent.
Yes,
yeah.
he will have comparables of that, and the pro forma data shows
About a $10 million project without the land. And that's, it's kind of hard to go to the investors at this point when you don't even know what the total cost of the project is. And they don't until they figure it out.
And that's why he was trying to secure, I think Chris was very eager about moving forward, getting that land located and that conversation beginning and the incentive conversation beginning, because when we asked him about the time frame, it's not a distant project. He wants to see this thing moving in a couple of months and start. So when Marty says it's not unreasonable, start thinking about it. I think you're right. And I would echo that. So.
Yeah. Well, presuming when all the details are known and we feel it's a good project for the town, and when you've all seen it and had a chance to think about it and incentives and everything like that, and we'll have a lot of public discussions around this, right? And get a lot of public engagement on it. You know, we can decide, you know, what we're comfortable with.
That's right. These are all thank you. They're conversations.
But it is consistent with the comprehensive plan though.
It is.
It's like we're going down this road.
It is.
Comprehensive plan, it's called.
I mean, location wise, that the way we've connected that whole Jefferson Street gateway to downtown and the school, et cetera. So, I mean, it makes, I get why they're looking at that property.
I do, and yeah, there's a always cost benefit, but I think it provides opportunity for development that was discussed in comprehensive plan.
And it's close enough to Main Street to walk, right?
Yep.
So we think it might support Main Street better than some other locations. But, you know, it's not the only location, but it does have water and sewer right, right in front of it.
It hits a lot of check boxes.
Yeah. It's kind
Well,
of
yeah,
nice.
didn't we put a lift station out there, Sally, through redevelopment? Or
There's,
a pump out there?
there's one out there.
When
but
Cassie
it's
Clark
not
was-
operational.
I was gonna say, we've never operated it, got put
There's
in.
a station without a pump.
Right.
Yeah, I think it happened the year before I started on the town council. Right around that
One or
time,
two.
back in the day when Kathy was on CRC.
Any comments from the gallery?
The pump and force mains there, there's no return gravity line though at this point.
Yeah.
So it's when the Jefferson Street stuff was done for the paddocks and Sandhill, it's just tied into that force main as another push.
Mhm.
So there's not a tap location at this point.
But Bob said he took a pump out there too. Or
Okay.
It's close, but
Yeah,
Any other thoughts, input for us on that topic? If not, we're gonna move right along. Yeah, we're gonna move right along. September financial. Karen did her usual great job. Let's get the numbers in front of me. Here we go. Okay, as of September month end, we have a total balance of 1,335,033. Our expenses for last month total 44,913. That is relative to the TIP fund, right? Am I reading that right? That capital TIP 1, 44,913 is, yeah,
It's,
it's not the bond.
you don't have any bonds.
Façade grant.
Oh, Façade grant. Oh, I'm sorry. That's what it was. Okay. So, and that was what we approved. So it ran through and that's it.
Marty, I'll motion to accept the financial.
Thank you. Ms. Munroe moves to accept the financial report. Is there a second? Thank you. All in favor of accepting the September financial report, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, got a financial report approved. Let's do the approval of claims next. We have 3 claims to approve for October. We have Barnes and Thornburg finally came through with their bill for
How about that?
working on the Dunes project. That's at $20,545. The Christmas decor is what we agreed to support on a multi-year basis, so that's now coming through at $62.65. And then we have our monthly $400 Lakes Magazine support. Total $27,210.26. If there's no questions for Karen on this, then I'll accept a motion or seek a motion to approve claims. Thank you, Ms. Ricciardi. Is there a second? Right, Ms. Jones, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Let's get to the meat of the order here. What my goal today, working with you, is to have your input and a draft spending plan that we can then give to the town council for their consideration and feedback, with the idea that as we meet next month, we can finalize it in advance of the December 1st due date. And so what I have done is put together a PowerPoint presentation and starts with that one. The next, I'm just going to give you a little bit of background for those, because we only look at this once a year. We're required by statute to put a spending plan together and have that presented to our funding body. In essence, the town council. We're also required to file it with the state. We do the plan. We're talking about it on a consolidated basis. Karen is kind enough to divide it into the two tip districts. What we, I think everybody can read that. We'll just move along. Thank you. The core requirements in this plan: what are the fund balances? What do we think we're going to get from a revenue standpoint? What bond payments are we going to have? What capital expenditures do we think we want to make? What professional services do we think we are going to retain? And then there's some pass-throughs and contingencies that may come into play. When we look at what we did for the current year spending plan, the highlights, we continued our infrastructure upgrades. Finished off, I think it was the Trail 3, and then there was some bond payments right at the beginning of the year.
There's one.
We had one,
You're done.
right, and that was the last one. It said we would focus on park and recreational improvements. We haven't really gotten too far down that road, although we did some. We included the Façade grant program, and we've been active in doing that. And then collaborating with local nonprofits for community development. We have done that. We've been working with particularly the one Marshall County Planning, Regional Planning Organization, but we've done supported in excess of that. So the next slide, what are the priorities for this coming year's plan? And this is based on discussions that we've had in this venue, as well as other venues. And this is what I've noted. Now, I'm asking you to see what I'm missing here. So what I've heard is that focused community investment, and particularly recreational assets, Main Street and the parks are areas that should have focus for us in 2026. Also, we know the town has talked about upgrades required for particularly the water reclamation plant, or am I saying it right? The sewer plant. That they may need some support on that. So I've called that funding for infrastructure and utilities enhancements. The third area of focus, to maintain the Façade grant program. We've heard that it's clearly very popular, and you can see the results just walking down Main Street. And continue the promotion of our tourism-based economy through support of the visitor center. A renewed emphasis on accessibility and inclusivity across projects, and particularly there, we were approached with respect to the park and its the ability of disabled individuals to actually access the water. They, we've got that stone barrier that runs along the sidewalk there, and it's almost impossible to get a wheelchair to the, to the beach. And that raised a couple other questions that, with regard to ADA access, and are we providing as broad access as we want to provide to our community, to the lake? So we should focus on that, and then continued alignment, of course, with the comprehensive plan. So that's what I gathered. Is there anything big, from a focus area standpoint that
I'll
is
probably
it
add
captured there?
to that first bullet, we have Main Street and parks. We have investment, community and recreation assets, particularly Main Street parks. I would add schools as well. Because I know Karen Schumann talked to us about some potential work on their assets that, including the park that we had invested in through Stellar. And then the other thing I noted was maybe some kind of bullet centered on planning. Because like this year, investing in the Main Street plan, we may need some other plan we're not thinking about, right? And I'm specifically thinking about, because I see Adam here tonight, and I know that our environmental council is going to engage in a huge water study, which is really important to our lake, our particular and entire environment, really, an ecosystem, both economic, environmental, et cetera. And I could see potential for us investing in that type of plan the same way I could like a utility study or, yeah, there's so many things we don't foresee until we're in the year. Like I would have never dreamed we would have been looking at a hotel feasibility study last year when we were talking spending plan, right?
Right.
So maybe just a bullet in general that would allow that. And then maybe a bullet to keep open the idea of investing in community safety and wellness initiatives potentially. And I'm not talking like, yeah, if we need a new fire truck or it could be a number of things that are, and maybe the comp plan bullet kind of covers that, Marty, because that is outlined in our comp plan, health, wellness, arts, culture. It is hard to like put it. We could play 100 bullets now that I think about it.
There was a point about in the comp plan about also maintaining the trails. and-
Yes.
and Building signage. And so there's kind of a,
Yeah,
Yes.
potentially a trail maintenance fund or match maintenance, something along those lines.
Yeah, you're gonna find in the next couple of slides that my parks.
Well, they're recreation assets
has,
to trails, right?
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
but I'm adding the schools, I'm adding planning support. I'm gonna find better words for that, but,
Yeah, I rambled about it, but you'll.
and then community safety and wellness. Is there anything else?
Marty, I heard planning support, but planning and project maybe, because we are starting to implement some projects.
I think
Maybe,
you've had that on a slide.
I'm sorry if you do, and I apologize.
About large expenditures for maybe.
I do later on, but I think mentioning it up front is a focus area. Makes sense. Okay. All right, great. Let's go then to the next slide, which is I've illuminated what the Culver Town Park needs are that surfaced in our public engagement. So accessibility improvements to Lake Max. That when you see this list, I was really surprised how long the list was when I put it together. Yeah, electrical improvements to support festivals and events. We have lighting, historically important lighting fixtures that are in disrepair in that park. There are pavilion improvements, the wood supporting the roofs of that pavilion is rotting at the base. There is some potential for changing how the boats and equipment are stored and provided to the community in the summers by SAIL 22.
Are they, I guess I have a question about that. Because they're, I don't know, privately owned and then they're also a bazillion nonprofits under that. Are they looking to the park for us to store their boats?
Well, what
Because they do make them out to the
I'll tell you-
park.
I tell you how I view it. We're contracting with them to provide a service to the community that we could decide to do ourselves. In either case, there's need for boats storage. And if we're going to think about where they bring their boats down, and which is where the ADA compliance would go, then maybe we ought to think about the things together, whether it's Sale 22 doing it or it's us doing it down the line. Yeah, please.
Crystal's also approached us about kind of concentrating on income revenue from rentals in the kayak areas, and that area between the convenience pier and the swimming area that we discussed. There's a nice space there that could house that kind of, so maybe an ADA pier, but also for the park to be able to put kayaks and stuff for accessibility, so they're out in the public eye, people can get to them and they're easy to put in, that to increase rental activity. And again, think of wellness to the community, you know, getting,
Right.
because that's one of the few areas that our local public can actually still access the lake. Providing them opportunities with rentals and stuff might be a nice thing, so.
And potentially be able to do it where you're not blocking a view of the lake from the sidewalk as you're
Yeah.
walking by.
I just want to make sure our park is in charge
Agreed.
of how
Yes.
that works.
Oh.
Sale 22, they don't do the kayak rental and
No,
they just do the sale.
and I do know that there's stuff that's everywhere. But we have people complain, even some of our park employees have had challenges with it.
So bringing
Okay,
some expertise to bear on how to solve that is kind of what the thinking
Yeah.
is. When
Is
I
there already,
get that
like,
bullet point.
thinking of like the wood on the pavilion, they have a maintenance budget for the parks
yeah, there's,
already, and is
Yeah.
that running short or what?
park operations are somewhat self-sustainable because of our pure slip income. That's the primary driver. We have concession income too and beach pass income, but we usually don't even break even really because we don't get much in tax revenue, right, Karen? Most of our revenue is off the pier slips.
The majority of the revenues from the pier slips. We do share some of the property tax with them, about $50,000. We've upped that recently. We've had over the last 7 years done some significant investments with the beach lodge, with the Stellar, the path. I mean, there's been a lot of.
Couldn't hear a word of it.
I'm sorry. So we've got $50,000 in property taxes that we give to them, and then money from the boat rental, the pier slips. We've done over the last 7 years, we've done some significant investments in the buildings and different things at the park that have driven that fund down. And so we're kind of into a spot where we need to rebuild that fund. So investing in some of those maintenance, or, I mean, obviously we're going to maintain the park. It's just the additional projects that, you know, people are coming up with that they're wanting us to do at the park. We can't do it this time without some other revenue sources. So, and one of the things that Crystal has been tasked with is to increase the revenue at the park with programs, with rentals, that type of thing.
And maybe partnerships for some of these too, for outside funds. And that's why we brought Indiana Landmark in and maybe pursuing some grant for some knocking off the cost. And these pavilions seem to be something that he was interested in quite a bit, but
Yeah, they're
looking
historic.
towards those grant opportunities as well. But yeah, just taking the burden off the income stream is important.
And is Crystal now the superintendent of everything?
Yes. she's
Okay.
our department head there.
What I'm trying to do here in my mind is scope it, right? And do it all at scope it all at one time rather than like take this part of the work and see how much it costs and can we afford it? Let's package it together, put some expertise around the design aspects of this work, and then figure out how we're going to fund it. If we say, okay, we can do all of this stuff or part of it, right, and it costs this, then we can think about, okay, where's the money going to come from to do it? And there could be grant money available for a project like this. When you say, well, we're going to improve the electrical at the park, it costs $50,000. It's kind of hard to get people excited about,
Yeah.
when you're going for
And
grants.
you're not, I was gonna say, you're not gonna get a grant for it.
Right, but
Yeah.
But when you're doing significant improvements to your park and pavilions and, the farmer's market's gonna be more efficient, efficiently laid out. We're gonna improve ADA access. We're gonna restore the historical lighting. Now you can now you got a project you might be able to get some people interested in from a grant perspective. And if you add, all right, so security cameras, and now if you go to the next slide, right, now if you package that with Cavalier Park and say it's a Culver Parks project, then you can irrigate the fields out there by dropping a well. This is what Karen Schumann suggested as her wish list out there. Get hand dryers in the restroom, put a perimeter trail around the outside to encourage walking and use of the park that way, and also security cameras to ward off vandals. The next slide, town of Culver needs that were surfaced, recreational trail improvements and maintenance. We know we pay for these trails, we need to maintain them. Water treatment facility upgrade, and then there's always the potential for property acquisition to support the town goals.
Or just change water to sewer.
Yeah, sorry.
Although
I don't know what.
maybe Bob wants both.
All right.
You think Bob would want it to be water and sewer? Or just sewer? at this
Bob,
point?
Bob. I don't answer for Bob.
He says utilities.
Yeah, utility.
I think utilities.
Upgrades, there you go.
So, and then the next Main Street renovation project needs, you saw the RFPs, right? We're going to need to fund this plan, the master plan. We're going to need funding to manage the implementation of the plan. And there's potentially funding, we might want to make some direct investments as part of the plan. I don't know what's in the RFPs, but typically redevelopment commissions have considered those types of investments when they're doing their Main Street. So that's that. Now let's take a look. How much money do we have? This is a slide that shows the kind of steady yellow line is revenues. You see it drops in the current year. That's only because I've got it through September. We do get revenue in December, and that would bring it back up, at least to where we were the year before. My estimate is that it'll bring it up above last year's. Then even with the slightly decreased funding in December from that. So then you go to the next slide, is the funds balance, and you'll recall last year we had seen that trend coming down because we invested in the broadband, and we said we're going to take kind of a year to plan and start to build that back up. So that's what you see. And on the far right is the 9 months number for us.
That's the 1.3 right there, right?
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Yes, that's the 1.3 that we just talked about in the approved financials. So now, what is the maximum we can spend this year? And what I did was take the September account balance of $1.3 million. I estimated the remaining expenses at 90,000 because that's what we essentially spent in the last 3 quarters last year. So, or the last 3 months last year. The revenue that I expect to receive in December, and again, this is just an estimate. I don't know, Karen, if you would agree with that number or not, but based on what came through last December, I thought 300,000 was an appropriate number. We're committed to spending 30,000 for water through the next several years, which I'm doubling and putting that in a reserve for bondholders. So that's 180,000. That's 30,000 for 3 more years, and then double. So that's 90,000 we have remaining on our water commitment, and I'm doubling that. Now that's not actually for bondholders, it's to the town, but we decided last year to keep $250,000 in reserve for bondholders. And I think we need to hold a reserve from our spending. So I took it down from 250 to 180 using the 30,000 that we're committed to. We may want to pump that back up to 250, depending on how you feel about it. And then our revenues from the TIFs next year, I'm going to ballpark it at 800,000. That's consistent with this year's numbers. So our total amount that we would have to spend then would be $2,135,000 if we spend it all. And we want to put a plan together that appropriates that much money, even though we may think that we're not gonna be able to spend all that, right? But some of these investments could be very pricey too, you know, you don't know. So next steps then, so then I forgot, I did actually propose a plan, didn't I? Okay. So I'm calling it debt service, and that's the one. It should be reserved of 180. Capital expenditures is the number I backed into after all the other numbers. Okay. Professional expenses, and I'm kind of going off of what we did last year, and I can give you the definitions for these categories. But in fact, let me pull up the numbers from last year. See what I did. So professional expenses last year, right? We did 150, so I've done 150 again. Grants and contributions last year, we wound up at 140, so I did 140 again. Public safety last year, we did 250, and so I did 250 again. Same with the education and training programs and the employee training. There's some technical definitions as to what qualifies for those two things, but we put essentially 40,000 into training. And then permissible reimbursements, we budgeted 75,000 last year, but we've already spent 149,000 there. So I thought it'd be good to improve that budget to 150.
Yes, well, and that's where I would ask that you just kind of take a look at where the expenses have hit in the spending plan, and we may be able to recategorize some of those.
Oh, okay.
I did what I understood, and I will leave it up to you to confirm.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah, I tried to go back and figure it out, and I need to work with you on that a little bit. Okay.
So Marty, this capital expenditure is like when we put 200 into the water plant or 100 or
Yes.
anything that if we bought a property that would come out of capital.
Costs of
Anything
redevelopment
construct-
projects, including transportation enhancements, curbs, gutters, shoulders, street paving, street lighting, traffic signals, utility infrastructure projects such as water lines, wells, public park improvements would be in there, recreational improvements and equipment, projects to enhance cultural attractiveness, real property acquisition, and equipment and personal property acquisitions that are permissible.
It's a lot of expenses.
Where would this Main Street RFP fall under? Is that,
That,
I would call
that is
professional
under
expenses.
professional?
that would be legal, accounting, project supervision expenses, and other. That's how they define professional expenses.
So would it fall under there?
Yeah, it's a good question.
I guess capital could still be your consultant on that plan, correct? Or even a engineering?
Would be more comfortable, somebody from a.
Read professional expenses again?
Legal, accounting, project supervision expenses, and other.
Other.
Yeah, because I think of usually when you're doing an NDOT contract, for example, you separate out your construction or your capital expenditure from your engineering professional services, which could also be a grant administrator and an attorney. And then your preliminary engineering or your engineering. And those are considered professional, usually in an OKRA
Yeah.
contract, for
Yes.
example. So I'm leaning.
Shannon Services.
Yeah.
Under that.
I'm leaning toward if the expense for the Main Street study, for example, would probably be out of professional expense versus that capital. So my leaning is to move some of that capital into professional expense, because that would also cover attorney fees, grant administration, engineering, you know, and if we're at the early stages of sewer and water, you're gonna want more under professional and capital.
So
Once you hit construction, you want more under capital,
what number do you want? It's 150 now.
300. I don't know.
That's a big jump when the
It is.
RFPs came from.
I mean,
Like 5800.
what's the rest of the team
Well, and
think
it could
about
be-
300?
That's what I was, when I was looking at it, I said, none of those are gonna cover probably the RFPs of Main Street, plus everything else.
Right.
That we want to do where we put it,
Yeah,
but it should cover some of that, what we already have in there. So I would say maybe 50 to 100.
Yeah, and I guess I'm gonna ask the question if, as we're in the stages of the wastewater and bringing in companies for design and for those expenditures for design and build, where does that, would that fall under the capital or would that be professional?
Professional.
Yeah.
So that goes back, and to go back to Jenny's point, as we develop and until we start the actual build. Yeah, maybe.
What
Well,
that-
let's go 250 and we can always reallocate.
yeah.
Okay. Any other thoughts, comments? We're starting to run against, we got 10 minutes.
We should at least let them have time to sit down.
Yeah.
Well, and this is a rough guess anyway, like,
Yeah.
It
it can be moved about.
Yeah.
It
within
can
the-
be amended.
And it's just guidelines as we go.
Yeah.
We went over
Yeah.
permissible reimbursements.
You're appropriating in this case.
So,
Estimating.
so if you could all look at this, and again, it's really important that to me, the most important thing is what are our focus areas? And let's make sure that we've got those right, so we can talk about those as a team, that we're all aligned around those.
I think other than that, it looks good. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, I
catch
feel
all
like
of the
the-
capital expenditures.
all the stuff we talked about the last 2 months is in there.
Okay. All right. So I will then take this before the town council, and present our thinking, our combined thinking so far. If you have any additional thoughts, give them to me. Otherwise, I'll try to get myself on the agenda between now and our next meeting, so I can give you that feedback, and then we can have a final plan. We can vote on it then. Any public input today? Adam,
Yeah, do you, 2 minutes?
you have 2 minutes.
So I know most of y'all, but I'm Adam Vadum, the president over at Lake Max Environmental. So one of the things I've been talking with Marty and Ginny and some others about, and what our organization is looking at doing next year, or soon. And, which is why I got invited here. Let me see, pull up where it was. So we are looking to do an aquifer study. And talking with some of the professionals in this space, the geologists, they would call it a hydrogeologic review. So in Indiana, Kevin has to go through, permitting for wells and IDEM, and mostly from what I understand, you can correct me, they're focused on that particular well. Can it serve the need that you have projected? Good to go for it. In Indiana, we're fortunate to have so much water that usually after this point, we're just like, just stick the straw in it and let me know if there's any problems later. So what we're looking at is a more 3D look at what the water looks like underground, how it's connected to the lake, and are there multiple aquifers underground that we need to be smarter about where we're drawing from? Is there a confining layer between those two that's preventing water going between the two? Where are the springs at? And, if you change the pressure, you may still have water flowing from a well, but if you change the pressure, you can actually change, an underwater spring into a drain, which is something that I learned looking at this. So certainly wouldn't want to start draining the lake and doing that after the fact that we added a bunch of demand or whatever it is. But we've taken a look at the whole watershed, the main users being town of Culver, the academies, and one farmer with a couple center pitted irrigators. A lot of the dynamics of talking with the professionals in this space is they want to look at seasonality. We're a very summer heavy one between the irrigation, the town. What does that do to our seasonal water availability? These are all things that we would like to do from a nonprofit side. We're able to be a little more speculative, a little bit more scientific in our approach. We can set the scope. Right now, I haven't set the scope exactly because we're looking at which partners we can pull in, so if it's information that the town of Culver can benefit from, then we can have a differential position of where these test wells may go in the ground. And as we do those, we can design it so that we can do basically a aquifer capacity test to know what the recharge rate is different times of the year. So really the benefit would be having these installed over the course of several years. And then you see as the weather patterns and usage changes, what's happening, and we can get basically a 3D map of what's going on. So that's what we're building right now towards a scope to do.
Was there also in that scope confirming the springs in the lake?
Not specifically like, doing a capacity test of each individual springs, but understanding how they're connected to the broader aquifer would give us some more information.
Okay. Thank you.
And some of it that, when I say speculative, I mean the fact that a lot of times when I've seen other studies of other municipalities doing this, you start to find things that you didn't know were there, and that spurs other scopes in the future and other questions that you didn't know. So, yeah.
So what's the upshot? And think you're going to come to us to ask for our support? And
That's what I want to hear from you. What would be the next, what specifically would you want to hear from me? In what format?
how soon are you going to have this together and scoped and costed? And
So I'm going to have,
financed?
one of the guys that I've talked with is going to get me it does a lot of work in the area, is going to get me a scope next week.
Okay.
Of what he would propose for a basic, I kind of laid out the land of what we have, what we're looking at, and he's going to give me a scope to kick that off. So,
Okay.
and I'm looking, yeah.
And you envision the financing for the study to come from
So,
multiple sources?
right, we have a couple grant applications out as well as our own private donations.
How we fit into that scheme is what we need to know.
Okay.
As well as what the scope of the project is. We need to verify that it's, we can spend money on that type of work. And then we'll need to decide if it's the appropriate expenditure given our other priorities.
Sure.
And of course, what you'd like from us.
Sure.
Okay. All right. Any other public input before Barry crashes through the wall?
Just real quick on that, I was at a meeting with Susan Jaworski, who's the Secretary of Energy and Natural Resources. The state is doing a statewide water study, and basically they're looking at as a state resource. This could be part of our defense on that, because as a state resource doesn't mean it's going to get used here. It could be shipped used elsewhere. So there is a broader scope in this than just the local with our lake. If that's the lake, but it could affect things broader in Marshall County.
Thank
That's
you.
a good point.
Knowledge is power, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else? All right. And with that, then let's entertain a motion to adjourn 2 minutes before the BZA meeting starts.
I have one quick thing.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Member.
Our agenda says, our next meeting is November 14th. That's Friday. I think we've been going the third Thursday, which
Yes.
is the
Yeah.
20th, correct? I didn't know if we were moving it till
Oh,
the
because
13th.
it falls on. Oh, no.
No. One thing, sorry, no, this is totally, and
So that falls on-
Oosterbaan can't read the calendar.
So are we good with
Okay,
the
so,
20th?
Yeah.
yes. It is on my calendar for the 20th. I'm sorry about that.
I'll make a motion to.
Adjourn.
Okay, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Next meeting, November 20th.